All right. First, thanks for being here. I'm super pumped to have you here, Devon, because obviously mixed martial arts, we're both members of Leading Edge. It's a huge passion in the world. I love fighting. I love everything about it. As a disclaimer to this podcast, I want to say to people, even if fighting isn't your thing, I think you're going to take out so much of this podcast. Devon's motivation, his discipline, his passion and purpose towards this sport and this art is pretty phenomenal and commendable. I love that we had Matt, the owner, coach, your head coach, yes. And now we have the disciple. Yes. And it's pretty amazing what you do. I take a lot of inspiration on what you do. You're younger than me, and sometimes people look at someone younger and they go, oh, they're younger than me. They don't really learn from someone like that. But I think the martial artist stays open at all times. And that's what I've watched your career and kind of lived a little bit vicariously through it, because it's fun to watch, man. It's awesome. I'm past the prime of fighting. I don't think I'll ever fight, but watching you has been pretty phenomenal. And you're coming off a fresh win for the Ogitchidaa Fight Promotions Bantamweight title, which we see right here. That's awesome. So what I want to get into is, what does that belt mean to you?
Oh man, the belt itself for me is more just of like a symbol, symbol of the hard work that I've put in. It's not the actual belt itself that like carries much weight to me, because honestly, like now 6 weeks from now I'm fighting again and I'm defending it, so someone's coming to take it away from me. So I'm not going to hold on to the feeling of the belt, but it's nice that people really start to recognize the work you put in when you have a belt, right? So for me it's more of a symbol. It's not about the belt itself. It's about like just putting in all the hard work, and like there's tons more titles to be won. So this one is just kind of like, it's the first, so it feels special, but there's much more to be done.
So you said how many weeks away is the next? What's the date next fight?
December 14th is the next date. So that's roughly about 6 weeks. It's pretty quick turnaround, but I've been active this year, and I'll be honest with you, winning it, I was lying in bed the night of in the hotel in the casino, and I was already thinking like, what's next? I was like, what's next, man? Like that's, even though it just happened hours ago, that's the past now. So I was looking forward right away. Nice. I'm like, what's next? So I'm super excited for this one. December 14th in Wisconsin again, defending against a kid from California. It's going to be a good show. That's
awesome. I promoted it on my Instagram pages and stuff like that, and I really want to stress this to people. So many people in town. I know I have friends, I have buddies, I have cousins who all go to watch UFC cards.
Yeah.
If you're into fighting in UFC, watch the local guys. There's nothing like seeing a hometown boy get out there and bang it out in the cage.
It's almost more intimate, like in these small shows, because you see like all the people that are with me there are in one corner. Everyone with my opponent is in one corner. So it's just like a tiny little war, and it's like so close you could hear everyone screaming. In these big events, it's so loud and there's so many fans going off that you can't. It's so much more personal in the small events, and you should see it. Like, you've been to some of the live fights that I've been in, other fighters from our gym feel, guys like that, and it's intense when it's in that small, like, you feel like there's nowhere to go, it's just you and that guy, everyone's right around there, and it's just like, it's intense, man, but I like it. So
speaking of that intense feeling, I lay awake at night because I only train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I don't proclaim myself to be a fighter by any means. I'm not a fighter. I train a martial art, and I envy the fighters, and I don't know, I'm obsessed with it, and that's why I'm curious to pick your brain, what that feeling's like when they lock the door. Is there fear that goes through your mind? Is it let's go time? What goes through your mind when they lock that door and you're in the cage with someone else and it's do or die?
It's legit. I hate when people say this, because it's not going to give you the benefit, but it's an indescribable feeling. You have to get in there to feel it, but it's like a mix of you're afraid, you're nervous, like all these things are going on, like you're happy, you're excited, all these emotions mix into one, and like that's the best part. Like for me, the worst is like the waiting around, you're sitting in the back, waiting to go, and when you're fighting for a title, you're near the end of the card, right? You're either the main event or you're one of the last fights, so you're just sitting there waiting. You're watching, like my last fight, you're watching guys come in and like come and beat up, right? One guy, they ship him out to war, they bring him back into the back while you're sitting there. You got to watch this bloody guy get attended to by doctors, his cornermen, stuff like that. You got to watch the guy come back in, get a bunch of stitches right before you fight. So these things are constantly pulling on you in your psyche as what you're about to fight, right? Like, is that going to be me? Am I going to win? All these things, that's constantly happening, and like the weight. But For me, there's nothing more peaceful, and there's nothing better than just when they shut that cage door and there's nowhere left to go. You know, there's no, is my opponent not going to make weight? Is he not going to show up? There's nowhere left to go. So for me, it's kind of a peaceful feeling, you know? And this is what you train for. This is all these days leading up to, it's all for that. So for me, it's a good feeling, but I'm sure some other people have different opinions, right, on how it feels. So
well, it's your passion. That's what's like inspiring by it, and that's what like I think we're going to get into is I've touched on the last few podcasts, like the two big themes that keep coming up are passion and purpose.
Yeah.
And it's so cool with you is because your passion and your purpose are one.
Yeah.
This isn't your passion on the side and then you have other gigs on the side. This is your whole life.
Yeah, man.
And people don't see that. People look at a fighter, I think sometimes, and they have this ideology that it's brutal, it's violent, it's, you know, take your pick of whatever condescending word you want to call it, but they don't see the sacrifice, hours of months of preparation that goes into it. It's commendable. So that's awesome. And so next opponent. Do you have an opponent? You have a name?
I got a name. I'm not super familiar with him. He's from California, so I haven't looked up too much videos. It just got announced this week, so we're going to take a look at it. Obviously, Matt, my coach, Riche, he does a lot of that. He'll be looking into the opponent and what kind of style he is, orthodox, southpaw, what he's going to bring to the table, and then he'll kind of build my training around that. For me, I've never, ever focused on the opponent, and to be honest, I never will. If the promoter told me, like, hey, it's a surprise this time, December 14th, I'd be like, all right, I'll be there. It doesn't really matter to me because it's just, this is what I love to do, and I'm going to show up whether it doesn't matter what the opponent is, right? Like, and for me, I just like to focus on what I'm going to do, my skills, focus on myself, like, and just do what I do best and go in there and just focus on that, you know? Like, I think too many fighters focus on the opponent, right? Oh, is he going to do this? He's going to do that? You could be fighting a striker, and on that night, he could show up to wrestle. So is it really worth investing all that time, burning the energy into that? Just focus on yourself and show up on the date. That's the way I think, but...
Yeah, I think at the crazy high levels, when you're a super technician, they get into super analytical. But I know from your experiences, especially you're at amateur, I think cusping on pro.
Yeah.
And at this point, it's like people come and go, drop out, so you can't sit and train for one guy, and then a week before the fight, someone might drop out. I think that happened.
My last fight.
Your last fight, didn't it?
4 days notice. Yeah, I was fighting a grappler. Was kind of preparing for that, but I'm doing it all the time, right? I'm wrestling, boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, all of it. So, I seen a grappler, so I'm like, all right, like you're expecting that, but then 4 days notice, come in, got a guy who was more lanky, a striker, and like. It didn't change a thing to me. I'm like, all right, he's got me on 4 days notice. I wasn't thinking like, oh, I gotta change anything. Nothing changed. We were still showing up to fight, and that's it, right? So
using it to your advantage. That's awesome. Training camp. What does that look like? Tell me because people don't see that, right? How many months you putting into a training camp before a fight?
Typically, I like to do 8 weeks, I think, is like, for me, I've been experimenting this year because this one's going to be shorter because of the turnaround. It's going to be 6 weeks, so it's going to be shorter, a little more intense, but I like around 8. You see some fighters do up to 12 weeks, but I believe that is when you're not conditioned. They kind of use the first portion to build conditioning, get in shape to fight, and I've been so active this year, and I've been constantly training and taking no time off that I'm in shape right now. I could fight this 5-round title fight this weekend. But we got 6 more weeks, which is good. It's a good period to build up. But the training camp kind of looks like, for me, this last one I'll describe because it's the most recent, and it's probably one of the hardest that I've done. You know, I put myself through a lot for this one. So I was like 5 days a week, training twice a day. Most times like on a Saturday, something once. So you're looking, that's like 10, 11 sessions a week. You know, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, striking, pad work with our coach Matt, doing MMA sparring, tons of rounds. On top of that, I focused a lot on conditioning because I knew I was jumping from 3 rounds to 5 rounds. So I was like, I need to be conditioned.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. Because you won it in second round, no?
In the third.
In third, okay.
Yeah, but I the way I seen it is the more conditioned fighter is probably going to win most of the time in a 5-round title fight, right? If you fade in a 5-round title fight, you're probably going to lose. So I focused a lot on cardio. I did all my skill work, but I was biking, swimming, running, doing all that on top of the training just to make sure I was super conditioned. And it worked in my favor. It made my weight cut easier because my weight was a lot lighter. Coming in, I've had other camps where I was like kind of a little bit bulkier, more muscle bound because I was lifting more. So I focused a lot on conditioning, and it worked out. You know, I could tell, like, even after the first round, it was not the highest pace in my opinion, but my opponent was sitting on the stool breathing pretty heavy, and I was dancing around singing some of the music. And even then I kind of knew it was over, but I could sense on all these little mental cues that I paid a lot of attention to, which a lot of people just brush it away. At the weigh-ins, my opponent came in and he was overweight on the scale by like a little bit over a pound. And instead of just sucking it up and saying, all right, we'll cut the rest of the weight, they tried to dispute it and say, could we bring in this scale and that? Right then there, when I seen that, I knew I had him. I was like,
nice.
He wants to give up right now.
Yeah.
This is the easy part. The weight cut, for some people it sucks. You're losing. For people that aren't familiar with the weight cut, I'll kind of touch on it.
Touch on that, yeah.
So you're looking at, I probably weigh about 150 pounds, and fight night, at the weigh-ins, the day before, 24 hours, I weigh in at 135 pounds. So you have to cut some weight, right? It's not, the difference between cutting it and weight loss is you're cutting it temporarily. So most of mine is done in the last 24 hours. So you're cutting water as opposed to losing weight. So you're manipulating just some sodium levels, carbohydrate intake, and then doing like a water load where you're filling up to 3 gallons on the Wednesday, few days before the weigh-ins, and then cutting out the water so you're full of water, and then through like exercise, sauning and like that, you just kind of cut all the water, old school wrestling kind of approach. And so yeah, doing that weight cut is like, for me, I've always seen it as like, some people dread it. I went through wrestling for many years, and guys, they hated it. I was like, the way I seen it is we have to do it anyway. So why not find a way to enjoy it right now? It's part of the process. I see it as the suffering before the true suffering, right? It gets you in the right mind space before a fight. And there's nothing more intense and serious than a fight. So during the weight cut, I make sure that I'm unbreakable and my mind stays, because your calories are going to be lower. You're going to be losing weight. You're going to feel skinny. You're going to feel hungry. You're going to feel thirsty. But for me, it's like the perfect setup to the ultimate test that Saturday night is getting my focus there. So I love the weight cut. I look forward to it. When that week comes, I'm like, it's time to go. And when I see guys, like my opponent was starting to quit in the last moments of it, I kind of knew, I'm like, all right, I got this guy, you know? He's not as tough as he thinks he is, you know? So
that's such a cool philosophy, because I've done a few jiu-jitsu tournaments and I've had to lose 5 pounds and I've had to water cut that like 2 days before, and I feel miserable. I'm already a skinny guy with a high metabolism like you. We have similar body frames, and I just feel like garbage. So you're taking that garbage, and that's what I've seen with you do a lot with your fighting, man. And I just want to pick your brain and get into your mind on all that. It's just, I'm sure you have your insecurities inside, we all do. But you just exude confidence. And I've even tried to fed off that and learn from you in that. And tell me about your confidence, where you get that mindset from, that you just stay confident all the time.
Like a lot of it is from, honestly, like you hear people say it is from all the work. You know, if I wasn't putting all the work in, there's no way I'd be confident to go in there and, you know what I mean, perform confident, be relaxed. So it takes a lot of weight off your shoulder doing all that extra work. Like we were talking about before, I just have all these boxes I need to check coming in. I call them like mental.
Go into that. Because I think people can counter transfer that to their life and like prepping for something. It's like you write it down, write it, and that's so important.
A physical list, because mental is like, it's good to have it in your mind, but I actually write it down. And I'll touch on some of the points. It's a mental checklist leading up to a fight. I'm like, how's my diet? How is my sleep? How is my recovery? How is everything? All these things that are like, how's my training going? Am I getting better? You know, am I getting faster? Checking off all these things. And I literally have a list of things that I'll go through, and I'll look and like, and you try to improve on the fly. I'm looking, I'm like, hey man, I've been tired this week. I'm like, all right, maybe let's make 10 p.m. the cutoff to go to sleep. All these little things to get the advantage over my opponent, so I could sleep at night and I could just like check all these boxes and be confident, you know?
What is a box? So like, tell me, say with sleep, like, because I do a lot of goal work with the kids I work with through treatment and stuff like that, and we have a lot of strategies. So is it specific? It's like, I will go to sleep every night at 10 o'clock, or is it just like get good sleep? Yeah,
it's like getting the quality of sleep and also getting a certain amount. You know, I like, just everyone knows their amount of sleep. Some people are good with less. I need about 8, I'd say, especially when you're training twice a day, long days. So I'm like, if I got to be up at 5:30 to wrestle, I got to be in bed by 9:30, right, to be able to get adequate sleep. So, you know, I just set these little goals daily when I know it's like, all right, I'm going to wake up Monday morning to wrestle to start my week. So I'm like, Sunday, got to be in bed by this time, you know, whether you got to write that down, set a reminder, whatever you got to do to like do that. But with everything else, I literally like, make a checklist of like all these things. And once it feels nice to have them all checked off, be like, all right, my conditioning's there. My diet was perfect. All these little things checked off, so that there's no questions in your head, because in the build up to the fight, those questions become more relevant and they pop up in your mind more. You know, you could be like, it's so crazy. Like anyone that hasn't experienced it, you'll be in the back there warming up, and you'll think of these little things of like, oh damn, was I cutting corners? Or like, do you remember that session that I like texted coach and said I had this to do, but I actually didn't want to be there? So I don't want to leave any of that up to chance. I believe 95% of the fight is won before we actually get in there. The rest, so if I wasn't checking these all off, it's like, how can I go in there confident? And like, I could see it on some of these guys' faces that I beat. Like after, they don't even seem that disappointed because they probably know like, damn, I didn't check all these off, or like this guy just did way more.
They created their own reality almost.
And you kind of create these little excuses, which it happens to everyone. It happened my first fight, my only loss. Fought at 145 pounds against a tough kid. And I got injured a little bit before the fight, which is like no excuses still to this date for it. But that started to just, everything was in my head of like, oh my God, I can't train as hard now. I'm like having to limit what I'm doing because I hurt my neck. All these little things. And it kind of like, you start building up these excuses. All right, if I do lose, it's because of this. You know what I mean? Whereas like for now, I'm like, no matter what, I'm like, I have to win. And I'm like, I checked all these boxes and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to lose. But if I do, I'll face it like a champion, just like if I was to win or lose, right? But it is easy to like in the build-up find these little excuses. It's the same thing with your diet of being accountable, right? You're going to look and say, oh, you know what, I'll have this tonight because I had to work a long day, so I deserve to have a pizza. Or I did. We all do. Everybody does that, right? So with a fight, I think the consequences are a little higher. So for me, it keeps me really accountable, but also I'm just super passionate about this, you know? So for me, like for people with like weight loss, stuff like that, if you really want it, then you'll always find a way and you'll find ways to be accountable.
But you touched on something which I thought was amazing, and I want to go over that again, is he said like when you're losing weight, a lot of people get this like, I want to lose 30 pounds. And that's their goal in general, is to lose 30 pounds. And they like start and they lose 5. And they're like, fuck, this is hard. You know, I miss carbs. I miss this. I miss that. And they start making excuses. I've only lost 5 and I've grinded all month. You said something cool where you're like, you need a why. What's your why? Is your why like you're single and you want to find that person of your dreams and you want to look and feel a certain way, or you have a wedding and you got to be in? So like, I guess your why is to make it to the big trip.
I want to be a world champion, you know, like that's it. Like my why is like, it's simple for me. It's cut out, so everything else falls into place. But for other people, you got to find that why, you know, like whether it's like physically like write them down. Like I've written down, like before I won this title, I had it written on my wall, so I see it every day. Be like, I had the date written, be like, I'm gonna become a champion on this specific day. And that's something you got to wake up out of bed and look at every day, you know, and it reminds you. So if you're things like that, you're trying to lose weight, do these things, find the whys. What are the whys? I want to lose weight so I can be healthier, so I can play with my kids or my grandkids. Make a list, and it will put things into perspective. Is being like, I'm not doing this just to lose weight, just to be skinnier. Like you have a list of things that it will really make it better.
One sec. What's up, Jeremy?
Can you just be careful about like banging the table?
Oh, you're so funny. They told me, I got feedback from someone on that, and the other one we get excited with the hands and we bang. No worries.
Is he doing it?
Yeah. We don't even realize we're doing it. It's such a thing. We're talking podcasting. No, man, let's just stay chill. I do it too, and someone just told me that. They're like, I watched this one episode, but the banging on the table.
I'm just getting warmed up.
We get hyped up.
This table up.
This table will be busted in half by the time we're done. The whys though, they're so critical. I love what you're touching on with that, with the whys. It's like a why for me for doing yoga is like when I'm a grandparent and I have grandkids around, I want to be that guy who could still play with the kids, right? So that's why I want to be flexible. So that's But so in becoming a world champion, why do you want to become a world champion?
Man, it's just always something I looked at. Like when I first started watching fighting, I just watched it like, and I just something inside of me. It's like that weird, like, you know, intuitive feeling where I'm like, I could just feel it in me. And I still get that feeling sometimes when I'm leading up to a fight. It's weird. It's indescribable. I can feel it in my bones. It just, you know what I mean? Like radiates through me, man, and I just love it. And the first time I watched a fight, I was literally like, I remember watching the fight and I was like, I have to be a world champion.
Do you remember the first fight you watched?
It was Randy and Chuck Liddell, the first one. My dad rented the pay-per-view.
Nice.
Big pro wrestling fan as a kid, right? Like most of us were. So I was just watching pro wrestling all the time, and my dad rented that pay-per-view, and he's like, watch this is like intense, like, and like kind of UFC wasn't, you didn't really hear about it too much, so I was like, I remember just watching it and just watching all the fights, and it was like, damn, that's what I have to do that. I'm like, I have to. And yeah, I just knew it then. I knew, and even just watching the first fight, I'm like, I knew then, and I know now I'm going to become a world champion.
I believe it. And that's what I was going to lead it in the intro, and then I just lost track of it in there. For those, I'm going to be the second to say it, because I'm sure you've been the first to say it. You are going to make it. So if you're not on the Devon Lozej train yet, get on that train. Get on it now, because people will be looking back in whatever your goal is, 3-4 years. I don't know how long it takes to make it to the top. You're going there. I believe it, man.
Thanks,
I see
man.
your drive. I see your heart. I see your determination. You live and breathe it. That's what I'm curious about. For someone who doesn't know the fight game that great is, so now you got yourself an amateur title. What does the road look like? Where do you go from there?
Roughly, like, so with amateur, you're kind of like building experience, right? That's what the whole like program's about, right? Is like, not program, but like the whole like amateur circuit is about building experience, so that when you're fighting professionally, you have the experience and everything to like fight. Because fighting professionally is like serious, right? You're getting paid, you're fighting in bigger shows, so jumping from not fighting at all to in front of all those people is like, no one would be able to do that, right? Like, even the guys that are at the highest level, like guys, Max Holloway, Conor McGregor, all these guys were once amateurs building experience, winning and losing, right? So for me now, I've won this amateur title. I plan on defending it. I plan on having some fights this next year, and I want to make a professional debut next year. But timing's everything, and I trust my coaches. Matt's been around a lot. Like, I'm sure when it's time to make that transition, he'll know if I'm ready or not, right? Because as a fighter, you're always gonna feel ready, you know. Like, even before I fought amateur, I was like, I'm ready. But that's just the mindset you have to have, right? But now I've kind of liked building the experience, because each fight, my opponents have gotten harder, but the fights have gotten easier, because I'm more experienced, I'm more relaxed, I'm more loose, you know. And it's just about building that experience with everything, building experience with the weight cut, the nerves the day of the fight, your warm up, getting into a routine, building all of that. That's what like the amateur circuit does for fighters, right? So,
well, it almost coincides with what you were just talking about before, how you win a fight. Like the fight's like almost the microcosm of the macrocosm of making it big. Is the sense of you do this prep and have like, say, 20 amateur fights and you kill, or I don't know what this is. That's a hypothetical number, but you kill it and get all that crazy experience. When you step on that pro stage, you're ready. You know, you're walking in there. Where does the pro stage take place? What is there, like promotions all over the country?
All over, right? So even the promotion I'm fighting for now is like Pro-Am, so they have amateurs and pros fighting on the same cards. So it wouldn't be out of character for me to make a pro debut with them, or I could look for somewhere in Canada. They're all over the place, right? Like any promotions, like throughout Canada, you got like places in Montreal, Western Canada, all over to make a professional debut. So
nice. Now you went to Montreal, and that was on my list. Did you you trained with George, you said, right? You got a roll in with him?
I trained with George St. Pierre, Rory McDonald, tons of guys. And
so cool.
It was super awesome. And for me, it was not even just about, at first was going there just to get the training. Because, you know, like training, like you've been to other gyms, like there's always new bodies, new people to learn from. Some of the highest level fighters in the world are at that camp at TriStar Gym. So I like going there, but I was also interested in I stayed at the dorms there and lived with the professional fighters. And I got to kind of study some of them, which was like one of the things that I like was going there to do as well. This wasn't just going there to train. I wanted to see
not going for a photo op with George.
Exactly,
you know,
right?
You're going to do the real thing.
How do these guys train? What do these guys do? Do they sleep in? What are they doing? And like it gave me a lot of confidence just seeing the way I train compared to some of these guys, because I'm like, you see firsthand some of these guys they're just like everybody else, you know. They wake up late in the morning and be like, hey, I'm not training at noon, that's too early, tired today, you know, gonna train later. So you just see the routines, get to pick their brain and make good connections too with people, which is good. Like people, like I know people just from going down to train there, like guys that are in California, other places that are like, hey man, come down and train, right? Like, you know how the martial arts world is, right? You're constantly meeting new people and stuff. But yeah, it was good to go down there and train, get good experience, get good sparring, but also study, like, what are these pros doing? Like, how are they training? How do they set up their weeks? Like, just taking these little things that I could learn from, right? So
it kind of reminds me of Cody Pauls. You know who he is?
Yeah.
Kenora. He gave me some advice at the last tournament I went to, Jits tournament, and I was like, man, you kill it at like Jits, you kill it at guitar. That guy can shred, he can do Jits. He's won multiple titles all over the country, the States. I said, what do you do? And it kind of reminds me of what you're saying. He's like, I normalize the extravagant.
Yeah.
Like people look at extravagant stuff like a UFC fighter at the top of the level,
Yeah.
and it sounds like how you're saying. You like look at them and like, oh, this dude like has a rough day.
Yeah.
You know, this dude's just playing the part or doing the work to get there. And that's what's so cool about martial arts. It's like a breakdown philosophy. It breaks things into its smallest parts to grow from it. So I imagine you probably didn't get a chance to pick his brain, but if you could say pick someone like George's brain or your favorite fighter, what would you ask them?
Oh man, that's a good question.
Like if you got time, say if George sat with you and was like, hey, what do you want to know, kid?
Probably like a lot, like just on like, you know, just like on the psychology of it, you know, because I've heard him say, so I was just going to bring something up before you said that. A cool thing he said he does on the days of his fights is he drives around and he just stares at people on the street and just looks at them and just sees regular people. And he's like, you know, if I win or lose this fight, these people aren't going to care. They don't even know what's going on there, you know? Just to bring it down to that level of it's just a fight, because what we were speaking about before is at one thing when I was building up to this fight, I'm like, damn, this is the biggest fight of like my life. You know, I got to win this title. You know, there's so much on. But at the same time, I need to bring it down to it's just another day. I spar 2-3 times a week. So it's finding that balance of, yes, this is a big fight and I need to take it seriously, but also just to bring it down to it's what we do in the gym every single day, you know? It's just another day. Like, but this time there's a crowd there, people watching, you know? So it's finding that balance, which I think like I couldn't find that balance before is going through wrestling. Like I would find myself like legs glued to the mat, just so nervous at like nationals. I would be like making weird eye contact with people in the crowd, like watching them watching me lose, and in my mind I'd be like, what are they thinking of me right now, you know? So it's like, it's just building that, like it's just experience and just going through that to just find calmness in there, because like these are pressure situations, like, you know it, you've competed before, it's not easy. But I think a lot of people, like, they're so good in the gym and they're so good at being there, so most fighters are chasing being able to be the same guy you are in the gym is in the cage, you know?
Yeah, it's so weird. I heard Faraz Sahabi say exactly that. He said some guys are killers in the gym. They'll dust everyone. You put them on a stage, their psychology breaks down. It's exactly that. I heard kids that I took to the jiu-jitsu tournament kind of like on a lower level say that. Like they lost and they bawled their eyes out because they have associated to winning like, I'm on the team or I'm off the team or no one's going to like me if I lose. Like it's crazy, these mental things that we build up in our minds surrounding that.
It's crazy. It's crazy you say that with the kids like crying too, and I think there's no problem with that. You know, even as like adults, you see people judge guys in the UFC like after when they're, but like if you really care about this is emotional. Like there's nothing wrong with crying. Like when I lost my first fight, I cried.
I was so curious to ask you. It's funny to say that. I was debating in my mind because you exude confidence left and right, and I was like, okay, this is a blood, sweat, and tears sport, and I'm like, does Devon cry? I don't know.
Does he cry?
Does Devon cry?
Man, I cried after my first loss. It was like I had a lot of like close friends. You were there, close friends. It kind of helped. I was like, I didn't want them to like be like down, but like definitely sitting down in like the hotel after, I was like, I could not cry because I was like, damn man, you work so hard, and like I don't think there's anything wrong with crying, right? This is an emotion. Like I've had times like these are like, we're talking about the things that people don't see when you're training for a fight and all the emotions that go in. I've been just lying in my bed at night thinking about becoming a world champion, this crazy journey, this like dream of mine that I want so bad, and I've been crying, just like it sounds crazy, just have tears in my eyes because I want this so badly. And there's times where you're just thinking of like, what if I don't get it, you know? And like you get tears in your eyes. And then maybe you get up and you go for a run or something, it's midnight, and you were just lying in bed crying because you want this so badly. So those are the things people don't see, is like, you know, they just see you fighting and they're like, most people want to judge fighters and think it's like, oh, they just do it because I've had people say like, man, you just do it because you like to show off, like you're just doing this to like, why would I be willing to put my health, all these things on the line to impress anyone, you know? Like I'm not doing, at the end of the day, I'm not doing this for anyone but myself, you know? I wouldn't do this, like there's no one that could force me to fight if I didn't want to. When the time's like for me to be like, time's up for me to be done fighting, I'll be done, you know? I'm not going to stick around for anyone, I'm not going to do this to please anyone. But it's definitely satisfying having like the good team that we have around and coaches to, you know, like just to show the hard work and be like, show that like what they're doing is working. But at the end of the day, like it's about you, right? Like I wouldn't be doing this for anyone but myself. So that's
a cool lesson I took from you, Devon. I honestly got to admit that, and I'm glad you shared that I think that's so cool that you said that you cried just in the hopes of achieving. That's very humbling to admit that, and it shows how passionate you are. But that is a good point too, because I think you were honest about that, and I think you've gotten some flack about that.
Yeah.
People give you the like, oh, he's cocky.
Yeah.
Oh, this guy's got a big ego. But
Yeah.
whenever you want something in life and you're going for what's meant for you,
Yeah.
you're always gonna have haters.
Yeah,
You
that's
know
the
what I
way.
mean?
It's like they haven't put the work in either. So it's like I know that if they put in half the work I was doing, you'd be way more confident than I am. You know what I mean? Like some certain people, like if they put in half the work I'm doing, you'd be confident too, man. Like you'd be. And what are you like? You know, you can't let other people. Other people judging you and all these things affect you, you know, like am I supposed to be less confident because I'm afraid of what people are going to think, you know, like and yeah, you're always going to get flack, but at the end of the day, for me, becoming a world champion in this dream, like this journey that I'm on and what I want to do in this sport, that means the most to me, you know, and that's the one thing that they can't take away from me. You know, well, whatever people say, whatever they do, they can't take that away from me, you know. So I'm super serious about this, and I hold this like super tight to me, you know. It's like it was almost like something I used to protect when I was in high school. It's like I didn't want to tell people I wanted to fight because I was afraid of being judged, and I was afraid of people being like, oh man, like you'll never make it doing that, like why would you, like pick a real job, like I was so afraid, so I like held on to it, like you know what I mean, in a weird way to protect it. But now I'm open with it, you know. I've told my friends, I've told my dad, I'm like, I'm in this to become a world champion, and it like the first times I was saying it was like refreshing because it was like something bottled in me, you know, like I've had for so long that I'm like, this is what I want to do. And like, man, I don't care, like if you don't think that I'm gonna become a world champion, that's fair. There's a good chance I might not, you know. I'm not saying it, like I believe I can be and I believe I will be, but only time can tell. And like I'm just excited to be on the journey too, man. I love like everything about it. I love training for the fights. I like everything about it. Diet, like everything about it I love so much. So I'm like in my mind I've already won, but I'm like there's so much more work to do, and like I'm super excited, man.
Where did the passion all start?
Yeah, it just started like it's literally like clicked like that, like a light bulb turned
was
on
it
when
through
I watched
wrestling?
Yeah,
or
with
what?
the first fight,
Yeah.
I'd seen it and I was like, I have to do that. But in Dryden, where I grew up, small town, there's no MMA there at the time. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna join wrestling. Like my mindset was like, I'm gonna get into wrestling because that's a good base. And I'm like, then I'm gonna fight MMA. So I started with wrestling, and wrestling just kind of took me on like on another journey where I loved wrestling so much too, like the competition aspect of it. It's super one-on-one. I grew up playing team sports, and I've never liked something where I'm like, I could rely and say, oh, we lost this game because Mark did this, you know, did this. I've always liked the fact that when I just show up, if I lose, it's all on me, and when I win, it's all me, you know? So I've always preferred not just combat sports, but anything one-on-one, whether it's like playing checkers, you and me, you know? If I beat you, I beat you, you know? You can't say, oh, this guy moved this piece for me.
Or this guy carried the team.
This guy
or
did
they got
this,
Tom
right?
Brady on the team, you know?
Exactly, right? So I started wrestling. I wrestled throughout high school and like was doing well with that. And at the time, I just fell in love with wrestling. So I'm like, you know what? I should pursue this, you know? So I continued on doing that. I wrestled in university, but I always in the back of my mind was like, I'm going to fight one day. But I was like, just kind of riding that wave of wrestling because I fell in love with that too. And that's like, it's part of mixed martial arts is wrestling, right? So I just kind of like went on that journey for a while. And then once I had about a year after I quit wrestling in university that I was kind of like, no more competition. And it just kind of, I felt like there was no purpose in me, you know? And I was kind of like, you know, I still was kind of holding on to that dream in me. It was like I was still like protecting it. I didn't want to go out and be like, oh, I'm going to be this fighter, you know, because I was so afraid of people judging me and like all this. And then like, I just eventually one day I was like, you know what, enough of this. I'm like, let's get this going. I was like kind of reaching an age where I'm like, it's still doable, but I'm like, I can't just wait, you know. I don't want to be that granddad telling my grandkids that, oh, if I fought, I could have been this or I could have been that. Yeah. I'm like, let's be it. Let's not talk about it. Let's be it. And that's what we're doing now, right? So it's like I'm you know, on this journey. So
that's so cool. Now wrestling, I advocated a lot for people, and you took it and growing up. To me, it's the biggest grind. To any parent listening right now who has their kid in martial arts or whatever, put your kid in wrestling because you can speak to it. What does wrestling teach you?
It just builds character, like honesty, all these little things that you like, hard work. I took a lot from wrestling because like I had my high school wrestling coach was a good coach, but he was like pretty hard nosed on us. You know, like if you're late to practice, you're running sprints. If you're whatever you're doing, you're held accountable, you know. And as a kid, a lot of people, like, you grow up, you're not held accountable for stuff, right?
Good call.
You're out on the playground doing all this stuff, and you just, like, you're not getting in trouble for stuff. And, like, in wrestling, there's none of that, you know. It's just like you're gonna be forced to work hard. And right away they're gonna, like, if you're not cut out for it, you'll find out fast.
Yes.
In the first week of practices, you'll find out if wrestling's for you. But if you can get through that, it's what I would recommend to any kid. Or even if you have a troubled, like, I wouldn't say I was a troubled kid, but I was definitely, like, getting into fights in elementary school, super wild, and wrestling in a, like, some sense just kind of grounded me, you know. And it will give you purpose, and, like, you'll focus more on school and everything, because, like, I was at points too, I'm like, I have to get my grades up just so I could wrestle, you know. So it's working in both that sense, right? Is like, you know, keep your grades up so you could wrestle, you know. And most of the coaches are good at, like, oh, you got to make sure your academics are there, and, like, yeah, it teaches you all those, like, essential skills, you know, just, like, hard work. And, like, you've been through a wrestling practice, right? There's nothing
insane.
like it.
It's insane.
I'd rather hit mitts, do jiu-jitsu, anything like that. I love wrestling and I love to go do it, but, like, while you're doing it, you're like, oh my God, what am I doing right now? 100% intensity at all times. Otherwise, you're getting thrown on your head by someone else, you know? So,
you know what, I want to touch on that too, and we kind of touched on it the other day when we chatted, and I want to say this out to anyone listening. If you're looking for a hobby to get into, and you're at that point where you were probably at, Devon, which I guarantee so many people are at, where they played hockey young. This was me, where I got into jiu-jitsu. That's where I'm building up to, is like, you play hockey when you're young, you play baseball, whatever sport, and it has that competition level. But then when it's 17, 18, let's go pro hockey. Yeah, you join a beer league team, or you join a friend's Don't get me wrong, it's competitive. But when you jump on the mats and do a wrestling match, or you do a jiu-jitsu match, or you do a striking match with someone, it reignites that, like, that competition. Like, when you lose and somebody taps you or someone knocks you down, you're like, shit, I lost. Like, that's real again. It's that feeling like when you're a kid again. So many people, I think, are out there, and I don't know, I guess it's a little bit of a pitch to, like, the people out there, but people love watching fighting. They love seeing it. Come try it out.
Yeah, man. Like, it's like we were talking about before, man, is fighting's in all of us, you know. It's like, it's in our DNA. Like, our ancestors used to, like, have to fight for their lives, you know. So it's in us, you know. So, like, we were talking about anyone's mom listening, anyone will fight for, like, their kid's life if they have to. You just got to push them to that point, right? Yes. And we talked briefly about the root of all sports, all these sports. What happens when people get angry? When even in NASCAR, they fight. You watch football, they'll get in a fight. Baseball, they'll get in fights. Name a sport. If they get angry enough, they'll fight. So it's the root of all sports. You know, it's the purest of it.
The root of competition almost, right?
Exactly, right? So, and it's just the purest form. So, like, I'd say to anybody, is like, come out, especially Leading Edge, our gym is like, the community aspect too will change your life, you know? Whether you want to box, just do some wrestling, do some jiu-jitsu, whatever, there's something for you, you know. And there's nothing like that. I've had horrible bad days where you're like, you know, stuff with girls, whatever, you name it, you could have a family, stuff's going on, but when you show up to that gym, man, like, it's like, there's people just lighting your day up just like that, and you just, like, you shake someone's hands and you start rolling, and it's like, nothing else matters for that 2 hours when you're in the gym. All those problems going on, nothing. It's therapy, man. It's therapy, but you're getting the physical benefits, the mental. Like, you know how it is when you leave after a
or someone, like you said, someone will sit around after your roll and they'll talk with you. And I don't know why, because it's such an intimate sport, which it is, because it's so you're so physically close to someone. It gets to that point where you'll sit and talk to them and have a personal conversation. It won't be like shooting the shit about the breeze. It'll be like, oh man, I'm struggling with this. This is going on in my life. I've opened up to everyone at the gym about pretty much most of my problems. Everyone knows me, like, pretty decent open book
it's
about
a family.
what's going on, right? It is a family.
Legit, a second family. Like, we were just talking about this kind of briefly, and I've told other people this. Like, my family doesn't live here, so I see them like on a, like, yearly basis. You know, definitely for Christmas, some other holidays, stuff like that. But this, like, the gym, these people, I see you guys more than all my family. So I'm like, this is part of my family, is the gym, you know. And it's a good escape for that. And there's, like, the coolest thing too is there's every type of person there, you know. You're gonna see every kind of person there, you know. The crazy people, like, you know, you got, like, doctors that will come train there. You got, like, people that are carpenters. So if you need anything too, you have access to this community of, like, oh, I gotta get my whatever renovations done at my house, like, you got someone at the gym that's like, oh, I'm a carpenter, I'll come help you out, man. Like, so it's just like, it's this crazy community that, like, I'm like, anyone that hasn't tried any martial arts like this, you have to at least just try it. Just at least get out, and, like, I could understand that it's intimidating, but man, it's all levels at these. Like, you're not going to get thrown to the wolves right away. You know, you'll work with the other beginners and you'll build up, and it builds a lot of confidence too. That can be transferred over to your job, everything.
It's pressure. It's performing under pressure. It's like, I don't know, I think Rogan said it. It's like yoga with dire consequences almost. It's like you need a level of focus with it, but there's consequences to it if you're not prepped, right? Back to your fighting, because I had a question that I wanted to ask you. I was super curious about, because I love watching you fight. When I see you in there, I see Max Holloway, I see Conor McGregor, I see GSP, I see your level changes. When people strike, you go low. When people go low, you strike, right? I see that confidence, your hands open. What do you watch? Where'd your style come from? Did it come from a wrestling background? I know you may not want to give away too much because you had a fight coming up, but what do you watch? What do you do?
Man, I watch so many fights. It's insane because for me, it's like when you're not training, like if I work out in the morning and you got 6 hours to kill before you work out again, the next best thing is studying, right? You could learn a lot from watching. So I'll go through sometimes 5 hours straight where I'm just watching fights of different styles, wrestlers, strikers, and just picking up. Even if I learn one thing in that 5 hours, for me it's like a benefit. If I'm like, damn, that's a cool way you could throw this punch or that kick, or that's a cool way to secure a dominant position. And then I take it to the gym that night and I put it to work. So I watch a lot of fights, and all those guys you mentioned, I've watched all of them. And whether a lot of fighters want to admit it or not, especially guys at my level, it's like I'm a product of everyone I've learned from, everyone I've trained with,
everyone you watch,
everyone I've watched, all these little things. Like, everyone wants to be original, but the truth is we're all just
so true.
We're all just a product of all these different guys. Like, you know, like you're watching certain strikers and you're picking up little things. So I'm like, I'm the first me, but I'm a product of all these guys that I've learned from in the gym over years, all these guys that I watch. So I'm like, I'll learn from anything, you know? There's even fighters that I don't like, but I'm like, oh, they do that? I'm like, that's useful. And you can learn from your opponents too, man. You fight guys and you're like, damn, he was good at doing this. I got to do that, you know? So it's like you're just constantly learning. But I love watching fights. There's nothing more that gets me going. Like, I'm sure you're into the fights as well, but studying is like, it's the next best thing besides being in the gym and doing it is just being able to watch. And you could learn a lot from watching. And I think I've kind of expedited my learning curve and where I'm getting to a title in a shorter period of time just from the amount of studying and obviously the work itself, but lots of studying.
It's such cool. That is a very counter-transferable philosophy too, is when you study and when you watch like that, it brings in like say music. John Frusciante is the lead guitarist wise of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and that goes to everyone wants to be original, right? They had this idea like I'm going to be something that was never done before. Everything's been done before. It's all sounds kind of weird, but it's all stealing. It's all borrowing, you know, to make your own hodgepodge of who you are and what you're going to be out there. So that's super cool. Dream fight. Who would your dream fight be? UFC. Who would you want?
The UFC?
Who in the UFC?
At 135 pounds. Let's see. I don't really have I've never really thought about that because I know by the time I'm there, the times will change. But I grew up watching certain guys that you've seen at the weight class that you're like, oh man, I want to beat that guy. So it's like certain guys at the time. So for I was watching forever was guys like Dominic Cruz, Uriah Faber, some of the pioneers when I was first watching fighting, they were the top guys in the small weight class. So obviously in my mind, I was like, that's the guy I got to beat one day. But for a dream fight, man, just whatever fight, man. Every fight is a dream fight for me, man. I love this so much that I'm like, I wish I could do it every weekend. You know, I wish I could just fight. So I'm like, dream fight is any fight, to be honest.
But it's crazy, though. You hear a lot of the pros say that. When they make pro, they're like, and they're fighting these guys, they're like, man, I was watching this guy on TV 5 years ago.
And that could mess with your mind, right? It's like, damn, I was watching, like, you know what I mean? I was watching this guy, and now I got to face him, you know? So it's like, I've never really put too much thought about that because I know you just see how fast the tide changes in MMA. It's such a crazy sport that one guy's the champion and the next a month or two later it's a different guy, so things are constantly changing. So it's like I've just always in terms of that, just focus on myself. But there's gonna be definitely some dream fights in the future.
Who would you say, like, boning off what we were just talking about there, like, who do you think you've emulated the most?
Like,
who do you think were your biggest inspirations in the fight game? Like, I do that loosely with jiu-jitsu. Like you said, I lose a match and I'm like, oh man, I'm going to go watch a guy who guillotines awesome or does Kimura's wicked because I need that technique in my arsenal. Like, who have you watched?
I've taken bits from styles, right? Because like there's not one specific fighter that I'm like, I'm going to build my template off him. But I've watched guys like, I really like Max Holloway, is one of my favorite fighters. And I just like, I've picked up a lot of his techniques from striking. And I just, from him, it's like the confidence that like, I just watch how confident and relaxed he fights. So I'm like, that's one thing that I've really paid attention to. So I've taken that from him, and like obviously you got to appreciate some of the wrestlers in MMA like Khabib, these guys. Like I study a lot of him and try to use similar techniques because he's so dominant at that. So it's like I've taken a lot from Khabib. I like Max Holloway, obviously. George St. Pierre himself too. Like he's one of the best ever at being able to strike into takedowns, right? And that's always been kind of like part of my game plan, is trying to get the guy to the ground to use wrestling. So GSP is one of those guys that you can't ignore in that sense. You gotta study up on that. So training with him was awesome. But
well, that's what, I don't know if you want to give it away, but if you had to describe your fighting style, what would you say?
I'd say for the most part, I'm like kind of a wrestler. Like, you know, I'm always going to look to try to put them on their back because I know how uncomfortable that feels. You know, everyone's trained when there's someone on top of you, like beating on you, man, there's nothing worse. So, and that's honestly what I'm best at, I would think. So I'm going to do that. And even if my opponent was listening to this, for me, it doesn't matter because he still has to stop it. I could tell him exactly what I'm going to do. He still has to stop it. My last opponent, I guarantee he knew that I was going to try to take him down, but he couldn't stop it. So for me, like, it doesn't matter. Try to stop it. I'm gonna strike. I'm gonna try to wrestle you to the ground. If I can't get you to the ground, then I'm gonna try to knock your head off your shoulders. And if I can't do that, then damn, we're gonna have a wild fight.
I've heard some ex-fighters and some people who know the fight game a lot say wrestling is the biggest fundamental, because it's exactly that, right? Because when people think and they look at you, okay, this guy's a wrestler, he's gonna come take me down, you're like, all right, I'm gonna stand up and bang with my fists. And if you sit there waiting for that takedown, you're gonna take shots to the face, right?
Exactly, right? And you're able to dictate where the fight takes place, right? If you want it standing, you could keep it there. If you want it on the ground, you could bring it there, right? So that's the luxury of being a wrestler in this sport, you know, is like you could put the guy down or you could keep it up. And also too, the expectation, they just expect you to wrestle. You faint low for a takedown, come over top with like an overhand left. I did that multiple times in my last fight, and the guy was kind of biting on it, and then I'm coming over the top, hitting him, and his eyes swole up huge. And that's just that anticipation on his end, right? Is thinking, oh, he just wants to wrestle. But it's all about disguising what you're gonna do, right?
Who do you have for the best pound for pound in the world? Do you follow the official rankings? Do you think it's Jones, or do you think, I always look at Jones as not a cheat because of what he's done in the sport with the drugs and stuff like that, but with his body type, like he's just he towers over people. He's kind of like an anomaly in a division in a way.
I think it's probably John Jones, to be honest.
You think it's John?
Yeah, I everything he's done outside, I always keep out, because at the end of the day, it's about fighting. I don't care about that stuff. It doesn't make him a better person, but I'd say John Jones. His resume is like, it's ridiculous. He's beat all that guys. The only thing, the knock on him is like 205 in the last 5 years or so has always been kind of a weaker division. So I take that into account. But there's so many great fighters and so many guys just like, they don't realize how easy it is to lose just like that. You know, you could lose one fight. Like Mighty Mouse Johnson, people were talking about him being the best pound for pound forever. He lost one fight and it's gone just like that. Everyone's like, nope, not him anymore, right? But he's still one of the best ever in terms of technique. I still rank him up there. So there's lots of guys, but I'd say John Jones
all around.
Even though I don't like him.
No?
I'm not a big fan of him. No.
Yeah, I think
it's just like
he's pretty fake, huh?
He's fake.
Yeah, he's definitely. So back to just you personally and off the fight games, because I want to get back to touch on those points about like people don't see the sacrifice. They don't see 3 months of a clean diet. What does a day in the life of Devon look like?
Besides the training, so the diet is like, I'm really strict with that. Like, I'm like super strict. I was bad at some points where I've like talked to people that are like, man, you got to loosen up a bit with it. You know, you can't like go crazy, but just I'm constantly eating whole foods. Like I don't count calories, anything like that. No. I prefer like, you got to make the calories count as opposed to count calories, right? I'm not like portion controlling. I eat enough to be full and get through my training and recover, but just whole foods, man. Like you're talking about like rice, sweet potatoes, everything like that, Ezekiel bread, eggs, chicken, fish, like clean, lots of vegetables, lots of fruit, stuff like that. But I don't have a specific anything laid out. I've been like that, like eating really clean for a long time. So I kind of have what I know works for me. But I've experimented with all types of things like intermittent fasting, other things. Even lately, this camp I was doing a lot. I listened to Crone Gracie was talking about throughout the day, he only eats like his large portion meals, like big meals at the end of the night when everything's done, you know. Really? So taking that even into your lifestyle, you're working, because he's like, it slows you down, so he just kind of snacks and fuels just what the body needs throughout the day. And I've been doing that lately, and I feel my energy levels are way more consistent and at a higher level, right? So it's just waking up and having just a lighter breakfast, and then 2 hours later maybe you have a banana and a little protein bar, and then you go for a workout there, have a protein shake after. And then you train again, and then once the day's over, because like that, those big, everyone's went for sushi, things like that, you have that big meal and it just slows you down so much, you know. And so I've been experimenting with that, and I've really been liking just like the smaller portion meals, but consistently throughout the day, you know, just keeping the engine going steadily throughout the day, and that works for me. But
I've heard the digestive tract is the most energy consuming organ in the body. And people are often in our society eat right before bed, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
they get a shit sleep because their body's still working, breaking that down,
exactly. And that's still, sorry to cut you off, but that's still happening before a workout. When I had buddies that would eat these giant meals and then go right to the gym, and I'm like, you know how much performance you're losing? Your body's still digesting all that food, and now you're expecting it to lift weights, wrestle, do all that. So for me, training on an empty stomach is kind of optimal. You know, I not eating for like 3 hours before feels best for me, because I feel like, back to George St. Pierre, one of his quotes is, would you rather be a full lion or a hungry lion?
Good point.
So the hungry lion is always ready to hunt and eat, right? So
well, it's so cool. I watched on this Nature documentary, they were talking about the general human and their food consumption. And you were talking about the DNA fighting in us and all that. We're like 200 years removed from eating all whole food, right?
Yeah.
Like all hunter-gatherer, there's agriculture too, but still, it's all whole food. They said the average human could walk from New York to Florida, would take them 2 months, and they would survive off nothing. Barring like health concerns and stuff like that. So I think there's this preconception, we've been like sold this like 3 meal a day, like you're talking about Crohn's strategy, right? Yeah. And he eats later. I think we've been fooled a lot with this big eat at breakfast, eat at big lunch. Because I know like probably a lot of people listening, they go eat their lunch on their work break, and they come back and they want to go to sleep at work. They're exhausted.
Was it you on one of your previous podcasts talking about how humans are designed to walk like?
Yes. Well, I think I'm repeating the same thing. Like our body's designed to walk 8 kilometers a day. That's an average. Yes. That's what we're designed for. Like I've studied the people. I'm obsessive with learning, and I've studied all the people who make it over 90 years old. And they generally don't like own vehicles, and they walk. Like my grandma's 98 and still kicking, and she never drove a day in her life.
Yeah, that's one thing I want to touch on too, is like I've always like kind of like I've not gotten
you don't
flack,
have a car,
yeah, but no, not with that. Was with training was not taking rest days, which I've like argued with people over.
That's where I want to go next. So remind me about that.
I've argued with people over like, oh, you got to take rest days, and I'm always like, I believe there's always something to be done, you know, because our bodies are designed for that. Like sitting around all day isn't like gonna help you recover, you know. You gotta like, I'd rather go shadow box lightly, even for 15 minutes, lightly move my body and get blood flowing, and then go stretch in a sauna, as opposed to just sit around and lie all day, right? So like people are like, oh, you gotta take rest days, and I'm like, most times, like this last fight camp, I didn't take any days off. I had one day where I had the flu really bad and I was kind of stuck in bed, but besides that, I trained every day, and it doesn't have to be hard every day. You know, some days are light. You know, when I feel the body breaking down, it's going to be a lighter day, but it's maybe just half an hour of moving, just breaking a sweat, even just maybe going for a walk, doing whatever, just to break a sweat, and your body recovers. You get that fresh blood to the muscles that are trying to recover, right? So sitting around, I don't know, I don't believe in that, but I don't know how you are with the rest, but I think there's always...
so weird though. I just when you're talking like that, I just go through my mind, and like there's so many philosophies out there. I think it's right for the person in particular, but I kind of agree with you on that. If you have to look at how removed we are from nature, people weren't sitting around for more than a day on their ass. You know what I mean? Because your people are moving on. But that rest part, there was a part I want to touch on. But for mental health, like it's intense fighting. Is there anything you do? Because maybe not rest isn't the right word, but balance.
Yeah.
How do you bring it into balance? What do you do for fun when you're not thinking fighting and you're in a fight camp and you don't go out and drink and you don't go have, like you mentioned, you can't go to a buddy's birthday party because you're like, no, I'm in fight camp. You got to say no. There's a lot of sacrifice.
I do some type of meditation. I'll admit I'm not very good at it. I just kind of make up on the fly. I like to do like visualization techniques, which I like to do as weirdly as I do it in the pool. I like my swim workouts that I've been getting big on. So I'll swim, and then while I'm resting, when I'm like under the intensity of exercises where I do I just visualize and I see everything. And one thing I'll admit that I've been doing a lot and I've always done, which some people don't think is good, is I visualize the negative as well, not just the positive.
I heard Nate talking about that.
Yeah, I like to I heard it from somewhere and I was like, that's really cool. And this was a while ago. It's just visualizing yourself hurt in a fight, in these bad situations where you're about to be finished and you got to scramble just to survive. I visualize these things and I see it so that if it does happen, it's not like an unfamiliar situation, because you want to visualize just the positive all the time of you just winning. But the moment you face adversity, you're going to be like, damn, I've never been here, right? So you could kind of train your mind for all the situations possible, right? Is like the positive, the negative. Obviously, I'm not waking up every day being like, oh, this guy's going to beat me up, right?
Yes.
But there's a time and place to just visualize, like, all right, if we go there, like, we've been there in the mind, because like it's the same concept like they talk about with dreams, right? Is like when you're dreaming, you recreate scenarios that prepare you for life, right? Like you're stressed about something with your job and you'll dream about that situation, and it kind of this isn't like backed up by science at all. I don't know what I'm talking about. I've heard this, right? And it makes sense, is you're thinking about something a lot, so your mind puts you through the situation, so it's not unfamiliar when you approach it. It's like a training program. So I utilize that when I'm conscious, obviously, just with fights, is like thinking about just like what could happen, being prepared for everything. So, because obviously you're not going I hope not, you're going in the gym and getting finished on the mats. I hope you're not getting TKO'd there.
I'm pretty sure you probably heard it from Nate. Yeah. I remember hearing that right before a jits tournament because I was struggling with my mental game. And he says before he goes into a fight, he's like, fuck it. I think about what's the worst that's going to happen. Yeah. I go in there and get smashed and I come back I'm not going to lose terribly, horribly. Yeah. I've prepared intensively, but if I can picture the worst, then I know what the worst can come. Super cool thing, and I think for the listener I want to impart on this, what I commend with you is, I think to stay healthy, and I love watching your game with this, and why I think you can keep going every day is because you have such a gamut of things that you can pick from. I remember you saying, you're like, oh shit, I'm tired today. I'm not going to go do a double and then, go do some weights. You're like, I'm going to go for a bike ride. I'm going to go for a swim. I'm going to go for a jog. I'm going to go for a run, a walk. I think that's so important to the average person to be healthy. It's like, you don't need to be an MMA fighter. You don't need to be a professional bodybuilder. Again, get some hobbies. Get some hobbies that are outdoor, that get the blood flowing, because we live pretty sedimentary lives these days. So that's what you just develop these things over time, things you like to do.
I've just always liked like anything obviously that's gonna get me like get my conditioning better and get me better at fighting. I'm in. If someone like I'm not like, you hear all these there's some crazy things that like you hear, but like anything that's gonna get me better, and I love all those things. Who doesn't like riding a bike, man? I grew up as a kid riding bikes for hours every day, so going on a nice bike ride and feeling that feeling in your lungs and everything, I love that. So it's like I mix it up and like constantly change things so that I never get bored in my mind. Like obviously I got all my skill training I got to do, but then on top of that, all the cardio. I'm like, some days I'm just like, you know what, like let's go run a mountain. Let's go ride a bike. Let's go for a swim. Let's do whatever, right? Like, so I think that's important too, just for the everyday person. Is like sometimes it doesn't even have to be hard too. Like you don't realize how hard a workout is. Like you go ride a bike, go around everywhere. It's fun, and then at the end you're like, damn, I got a good workout. Like I burned all these calories. I feel great. So like find things that you love, because like it should never be about doing something you don't love. Like why would you do that? Like if people are like, I hate running, then I'm like, don't run. There's other ways to get cardio, and go try swimming, try biking, play whatever, freaking
tennis, cricket,
anything.
Name anything.
Something you like, you could form it into exercise and into your routine, so you're like looking forward to it. It's like with us, like I look forward to everyday training when I'm like, oh yeah, jiu-jitsu tonight or this. Like you look forward to it. If I didn't like this, then damn, it would be horrible. I wouldn't even be bearable.
I think that's kind of a little bit of a critique I'm going to say about the jiu-jitsu game. Is people get so passionate about it and one-sided. That's all they do is jiu-jitsu. And if anyone who does jiu-jitsu or know about it, it's very hard on the joints and the hands and the ankles. And then you get kind of worn down. You're like, I'm being lazy, but I got to go train. So you go again and you train again. I've kind of gotten that feedback in my life, and it's helped. I've not toned down my game, but trying to do what you're talking about more to stay healthy, because it's just like there's only so much you could break down your joints in one thing. And that's what I think is cool about what you're talking about. Like, is say you do a hard workout and your muscles are killing, well, you're not going to do something that's going to be weight loading on your muscles. Right?
Exactly, right? So it's just like putting things like in a context, right? It's like, does it make sense to like, everyone knows guys that's like, you go in, break your body down, and then they're like, say with weights, and then they're back in the gym the next day or that night, breaking it down again. It's just like, that's not good for your body, right? Like, you gotta find ways to mix it up and like stay healthy and be able to do, like, I want to be able to do this for the next 9 years. So am I gonna run my body into the ground and break it down? No, it doesn't make any sense, right? It's about like building, just slowly building. And like, and at the end of the day too, as much as I love fighting and like I have this dream, it's like longevity obviously means a lot too, you know? So staying healthy like this and eating healthy, like really it's just kind of made me see like, damn man, I'll probably live long. It's gonna be nice, you know?
Well, that's another
live
thing
till like I'm 100.
I was curious to ask you too, is like what it feels like to be you is in this discipline. Is there a sense of peace in the sense that you're not going out and crushing McDonald's and you know what I mean, drinking on every weekend, you know, like how does it feel to be in a fight camp?
It's so satisfying, you know, like you miss, like I used to be like the, you know, the word FOMO. I used to be that guy who's like, fear of missing out. So you're lying in bed on a Friday night and you know everyone else is out partying, doing all this, and you just get antsy, and then out of nowhere you're just texting all these random someone to go out with, you know. I used to have that like in my earlier 20s. I would just like, I have to be doing this, and now it's just so peaceful, man, to go like, and it's not about being better than anyone. I'm just like trying to better myself, and I know I feel better when I get like go to bed on like 10 p.m. on a Friday, wake up early to train, do whatever. You just feel better, and living that lifestyle is just like, it's awesome, man. I love it. Like, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
With that lifestyle, is there a work environment? Like, I know you work, so it's just part-time, and how?
Yeah,
because
part-time.
this is your full-time job.
Yeah, this is like my like full-time focus. But obviously, it's like when you're fighting amateurs, like you're not making any money, so it's like you got to find a way to get through, right? Like, so working is like part of that. But for me, it's like all my focus is on this. Like, I won't put extra stress in anything that's gonna affect this, because this is like my full-time thing. Like, I'm investing in my own body and all these things, and like I used to not have that mindset, you know. I was just kind of like worried about all these other things, and now it's like, instead of going out and partying, like buying stuff like CBD, these other things that are going to help me, that's what I'm worried about, is getting this. So I'm like, it's like a long-term investment for it to pay off. But also at the end of the day too, it's like this passion, it's not really about money, man. I love doing it, and it's just like a passion that if even fighting professionally, if you never got paid, I'd probably still be doing it, you know? Probably still have to work and do it, but I'd still be doing it, man, because I just love it so much. So
I really respect your lifestyle, man, because you're kind of a throwback to, I wouldn't say like the 70s or even 60s, but like, you have the pleasures of technology, a phone and stuff like that, but like, you don't own a car. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I say that in the sense that you're not putting your priorities where, like, I took out a lease for a car, or I got to freaking work an extra job, or else I am not paying that car loan. I got a house, you know, and I got all these things. And you're what, 25 right now?
25 or 26.
And so many people jump into stuff like that's such a cool concept. You're talking about fear, missing out. Like, I want a relationship, and they'll get into a half-assed one because they want the kid or they want this, right? Where that'll come to you eventually.
These things,
but right now you're focused on what you like is your dream.
Exactly. So that's like perfect that you said that I was like, I've always looked at all these other things as like, should like buying all these things that you want, but I'm like, those things will come in time, you know? Those things will come as long as I focus on this and stay on the straight path. Everything else will come, you know? So just like for me, and I'm just like, I've never been happier in my life, you know? Went through periods where I was like younger and you're just kind of partying. What am I going to do with my life? What am I going to, all this? And I've just never been more focused and been happy than I am right now, you know? So
you're kind of living what I've studied over my life is like, I don't want to say The Secret, because a lot of people attribute negative things to that movie. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. The Secret, it was a documentary that came out, or it's just like that, like visualization lifestyle stuff where people read the books, the audio
like
tapes,
Vision Quest,
the vision, you know what I mean. But not to take the cheesy aspects of it, but the follow your dream and your purpose. So many people get diluted, and I wish they could take that message from you it's not fighting, whether it's writing, whether it's music. Live your dream, live your purpose. You're going to be happy. There's so much of these conditionings that are in mind. Like, you could think, oh shit, I don't own a car, I'm a bot, I don't have this or I don't have that, but fuck, I guarantee you're way more chill and have less stress in your mind because you're following passion, right?
Happy. So like at the end of the day, for anyone else, it's like, it's nothing's more sad than when you see someone being like, oh, I'm like working this job and it's killing me and they don't even like it. And I'm like, then why are you doing it? What makes you happy and what do you want to do? Then just do that. If you're after money, cool. Get that job that's going to pay you money. But like, like for me, it's just like, I've just kind of focused on, I'm like, what makes me happy? What drives me every single day when I wake up? Like, what makes me happy? And it's this. So I'm going to pursue this. Why would I do anything else? And it's so sad the amount of people that just don't chase their dreams, don't do things. Like, you started this podcast, like you're interested in this and then you just went for it and now you're just doing it, right? And things will build over time. And right away people are going to be like, Mark Perrier, he's got a podcast. What's that guy doing? He's not going to, like, you know what I mean? It's the same thing with fighting. As soon as people find out, they'll be like, why is that guy fighting? He'll never be a good fighter. He'll never do this. Oh, he'll never be a good amateur. And then, oh, you fight pro and they're like, all right, like he's pro, but he'll never be a good pro. Oh, I become a good pro. Then they'll be like, oh, he's a good pro. He'll never be in the UFC. Then you make it on and on and on, right? Oh, he's in the UFC, but he'll never win a world championship. And then you do that and you just keep going and going and going. So it's like, man, having a dream is like, it's a damn good feeling, man. I know. It's a damn good feeling.
You've used that line, I think, before, and I want to keep talking about it because it's so inspiring to me, and that's how, like, it really gets my fire going. It's like, I'll use my analogy of jiu-jitsu. It's like, I started it out of love 6 years ago, and I've done it religiously since then, and I'm like, all right, people are like, why do you do that jiu-jitsu stuff? It's dumb. It's killing your body. You do it 6 times a week. You hear that too, the naysayers,
exactly,
right? Arnold says, never mind the naysayers. It's like one of his rules of life. And now, 6 years later, I got a kids program that's 3 times a week with 25 kids registered. And I'm not making money at it, and I don't want to make money at it right now, but I look at someone like Coach. Look at that guy who's put his life in. He's got a business that is killing it.
A lifetime of martial arts. A lifetime
of martial arts. What was his passion?
Yeah.
He wasn't thinking the money.
No.
He was never thinking the money. And he still doesn't think the money.
Exactly.
But that guy walks into that gym every night. Almost every night. And he's working all day with the family.
Yeah, and he doesn't have, that's the thing, crazy thing is he doesn't have to be there a lot of times, right? There's other coaches that could cover, but you could just tell he loves it, and it's like, it's inspiring to have a coach that's working that hard. You see him like on the assault bike going at it before like class, and you're like, damn, coach is like, you know what I mean? He's a beast. And it's just like, it just makes those kind of things, it makes it that much easier, having a coach like him is like, he's been a huge part of this, and he's just like, he's nothing but positive too. And like, he's like, the thing I like most about Coach is like, he's with fighting is like a lot of what I think anyways is when you're the fighter, you're kind of like you know what I mean, like you're the one navigating, so it's like you got to be able to structure everything yourself, and just kind of like find your like how you like to train, do all this, and then your coach just kind of like puts all like helps you get better, does all those things, but they don't like control you, it's not like in that sense. And he's just so loose that he like, as long as you're working hard, he trusts that, like he has trust for me to be like, yeah, go wrestle with the university, like get better with those guys, and like, oh, you want to do this, oh yeah, that's good, do this, where there's like, you've seen it with other coaches, not just in fighting, where they just try to control the athlete, be like, you got to do this, you got to do this, and then that's what happens with kids, they burn out over time, right? Because they're just controlled. And at the end of the day, it's like, I'm a grown adult, right? It's like you got to have some freedom to like, you plan your own training and be accountable, right?
That's so the like best coach, in my opinion, is let the artist be the artist. But give them tools and structure to form their game. Huh?
At the end of the day too, like everything I've learned for MMA came from Matt and Veal and guys like that, and Josh, like they've taught me all that stuff. But it's still like having just like you were saying, the freedom to just be your own artist and say like, you want to have a certain style, because you see it at gyms too, where they're like, at this gym we do this, at this gym we strike with everybody, and it's just like, how are you going to tell a wrestler that comes into the gym that he's got to go and strike with these guys and wear Muay Thai shorts? Like, get that out of here, like you should, like, you got to do what's best for you,
well, that's back to living the dream. And that's where I'm curious to I want to dig into, like, find out how that came to be with you, where you grew that mindset, because I'm sure you had the naysayers your whole life, because you're not an enigma, but you're I think a lighthouse in this way of life. People get derailed, and I don't know why I ask you, maybe what do you think derails people from that dream life? You know what I mean? I don't know.
I think it's just like you just realize, like, man, I've like thought about it lots, like going back to the lying in bed and crying, man, as sad as that is to admit, it's just like, because there's some days where you doubt it, you're like kind of getting little injuries, and in the back of your head you're like, what if this isn't possible, you know, what if I like, you know, and they just lose focus of it because all these other things, like, you know, like you have a kid or something and you're like, I can't chase this dream anymore, it's just not possible, I gotta work this job to make this money. So I think just staying focused and just like letting go of all the things that don't matter, and just staying focused and just like going after it, man. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But at least you could say you tried, you know? Like, I'm not saying that it's for sure going to happen. Anything could happen in life, but I want to, at the end of the day, at least be able to say, hey, I went after it, you know? Like, people could at least be like, hey, the kid chased the dream. He went after it. And that, like, for me, I got respect for anybody that's doing that now. And like, just having your own dream too is just like, anything, like when I seen you were doing this podcast, like right away I'm like, oh man, I gotta let people know about this, do whatever I can to help you with your dream, you know, like.
Well, there's a steamroll effect.
Yeah.
And I'm learning it. I'm 36 years old. Well, in a couple weeks I'm turning 36, and it's crazy. I'm just learning it now, and I learned it through martial arts, through Leading Edge taught me this lesson of like, pursue your passion.
Yeah.
Alan Watts, if anyone listening has a YouTube video on how to, I keep hitting the table too now myself. You notice that, eh, Jeremy? Thanks. He has a video about that. He's like, he tells university grads, what do you love to do?
Yeah.
And they all tell him something, and they say, I want to be a writer, I want to be a tennis player, I want to be this, and they're like, well, there's no money in that. And he says, just do it, do you, and follow you. And through Leading Edge, seeing the dividends that jiu-jitsu's paid off for me, I'm like, damn, I can do other things.
Yeah.
And I saw the Pop Witches, and I saw this building west for it, and I'm like, well, there's two guys with a production company who he didn't even finish films. He didn't even go through film school. He's like, screw this. I just love it and I'm good at it. I want to do it. And he's got a crazy successful business that does awesome, cool work. So, yeah, it's just pounding home that message of doing it. So, did you have support in your life? Did you have, like, I know, do you live with your father? You grew up with?
I grew up with, like, my dad. I lived with, my parents were separated, but I grew up, like, I stayed in Dry with my dad, and, like, he's super supportive.
Was he supportive of you growing up?
Yeah. And he just loves it. Like, when, I feel like he probably had a sense that I would fight just because I was so into it. I'm wrestling, and I would say it when I was younger, like, I'm gonna fight, and he's probably like, okay, you're just some young kid, like, of course you want to do that. But now it's like, he's super supportive of it. Like, all my friends, like all the people close to me, which matters most, are super supportive, and they believe like I believe. And I just, like, I don't know, I'm just so focused now. I don't like being negative, but I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, if you're my friend and you're like behind my back, or like whatever you're saying, like, oh, he's not gonna make it, he should do something else, you're not my friend anymore. Because like, I've realized that, like, to do this, like, you might have to lose some friends, you know, like the people that aren't there for you just slowly will be weeded out. And like, I'm fine with that now, you know. There was times where I'm like, I probably wasn't, but now I'm just like super focused on this, and I'm like, that's it, man. Like, I think that's too, like, why a lot of people don't pursue it, is like the fear of, oh, like, what if, like, you know what I mean, fear of all these other things, like, what if, like, my, like, you know, I could like lose, like, I've missed so many friends' birthdays, all this stuff this year, like, lots of stuff.
We're even talking, like, in training camp, you can't have a relationship. You're not really even in a relationship because you don't have time for
you don't have time. You can't go out, and people don't really understand. They're like, oh man, you could go, like, you can go to bed. It's just like, no, they don't understand it. So you have to sacrifice a lot, but in the end, for me, it's worth it. And then there's always other times, like after the fights are done, when you're not training for, you enjoy your life just like anybody else, right? But it's like these small, for me, it's been all year this year, but there's small pockets of time where you have time to do all the other things you love, right? But
I heard Connor talking about that in his last interview. About he was kind of anxious about staying active.
Yeah.
Because that's what you are, is active.
Yeah.
And you're being active will keep you prepared to get in there day in and day out, right? It's when you start taking those long breaks and I'll get to another fight in 6 months when I have the time, you know. You got to stay hungry. You got to stay busy.
Exactly. Yeah, staying busy is key, man. It's just because it's like these guys, I feel like, for me too, even with this belt, it's like so many people are like, damn man, you're the champ now, and it's just like, man, this isn't even close to mission accomplished. Like, this is like a checkpoint, you know. I see like each fight is like a checkpoint, whereas like some of these other fighters, like, they get through a fight, they hit that checkpoint, they press pause, they put the controller down. For me, I'm just like, I'm steaming straight through the checkpoints, and I'm like, let's hit the next one, let's hit the next. Yeah, this one was gold, let's keep going. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna stop, I'm just gonna keep going as long as my body allows it. Why do I need to take time off? You know what I mean? As long as I'm healthy and I'm happy doing it, like there could be times down the road where I'm like, you know what, I need like a month off. maybe, yeah. But for now, I'm like, I'm happy just fighting back to back to back to back, and this is what keeps me going. So,
And I imagine winning so decisively has allowed you to keep going.
Exactly.
I look at you after your fights, dude. I see your pictures, and you're not even hit. Your face isn't even bleeding.
I probably got hit 1 or 2, 3 times clean in the last 3 fights this year.
Nice.
And yeah, that's just like showing like it's hard work, and like it's not that the opponents aren't skilled. Like they're good at like what they do, but it's like my last opponent was 4-1, knocking out all these guys, and like I had some people being like, "Oh man, this guy's like he's tough. He's gonna be able to knock you out." And I just from watching him, I was talking with the coach. I'm like, he's not even gonna hit me. I'm not gonna be standing in front of him to be hit, and that was the case, right? So.
Very cool. So let's a couple more things I want to touch on here. So next in goals, I think we touched on it loosely at the start. But what's your next benchmark?
Next benchmark.
Do you live one fight at a time, or do you? Or do you? You said you check off the list. Do you have a time frame for your pro debut, or are you saying a year?
Yeah, like within a year. I'd like to next summer, but everything comes in time, right? So get through this fight. That will put me at 4-1. And then hopefully fight 2 times. Even if 2 wins in the new year is active, by May I could be looking at 6-1, and like that's a pretty good amateur record, and I'd feel like that's enough experience to look at making a pro debut. So
does that record carry over into pro? No. You start fresh.
You start 0-0.
You start 0-0 in pro. Now, just a layman, I don't know the hierarchy to the road. What type of record in pro does the UFC start come knocking? Like roughly.
It's changed, man. You see some guys that are like 5-0. Some guys need to be more experienced, but I think it all depends on your style of fighting too. If it's a lot of finishes, the UFC is more likely to bring you in. But you're seeing with like the Contender Series stuff they're doing now is like the opportunities have never been better for fighters. There's more platforms, there's more places to showcase your skills and stuff like that. So. Yeah, but it could be anywhere between 5 to 10 fights. It all depends. Everyone's different, Sometimes they're looking, they need the next Canadian star, or they need the next Irish guy. It's all like kind of situational based.
Yeah. Well, I know the Canadian market, Bisbing was talking about that, is a huge one.
Yeah.
And they want GSP back in there, and the Canadian market's always big for the UFC.
Yeah, since GSP and Rory, you haven't really seen that next big star, right? There's kind of been like, so obviously they're always looking for it, and every Canadian fighting thinks they're going to be it, so we'll see. But I'd like to fight in Canada, It's like when you grow up, when you're Canada, like the fight's easier there. I know there's legislation issues, which are irrelevant, but it's like holding back jiu-jitsu tournaments and MMA in Ontario, which is crazy. Yeah, they allow boxing, and like how many deaths are there in boxing, but we can't fight here, so it'd be cool to have fights in Thunder Bay.
That's what's so funny. You talk about dreams of doing the podcast and stuff like that, and I don't know. It's just like a seed. It's not even planted in the ground yet. But like I wonder, like, what would it take to get the Coliseum chaired up with an octagon in there and 500 seats? Like. What is a commission? What would stop? Do you know much about that? Like, what's stopped? Because they still do have some fighting in Ontario.
I think like Ontario, apparently they're working on it now to like get all the like whatever the governing bodies and everything to align and agree on it, basically. And then it would just they'd have to have like a commission, right? So they'd have to bring in. If you had a fights at Thunder Bay, you'd have to bring in someone from like Ontario Athletic Commission. It would be a lot of work because Thunder Bay's out of the way, but could get it going, right? And like there's lots of local fighters, like talent, people that can fight.
That's what I mean. Like, and lots of people just across the border in the States, like where you fight, like it'd be awesome, man.
Fighting at home is obviously always a dream for everyone, but for me, I was born in Manitoba, so like there's fights in Winnipeg, right? The UFC goes to MTS Center, so that's kind of like a dream, right? It's like fight a couple 100 kilometers from where I was born would be cool.
Where were you born?
St. Rose de Lac.
Wow, where is that? I don't even know where that is.
It's close to Winnipeg, a couple hours from Winnipeg.
Really? Yeah. Was it a French community or what?
Yeah.
Did you grow up with French in your background?
Yeah, my mom's first language is French.
No way, same here. My mom grew up in St. Boniface. So.
I don't speak any French.
No.
A bit, like in elementary school they made us speak it, but I was like, get out of here.
When did you leave that city and go to Dryden?
When I was like 7. So my dad was born in Dryden. That's why we moved back there. And then Dryden's I like Dryden, to be honest. It's a super small town, good to grow up in because it's so small. Everyone knows each other, like not too big, not much crime at all. So it's a good place to grow up. But it's like Thunder Bay light almost. Yeah,
like
it's little. Yeah,
it's Northern Ontario. It's like Dryden's mini Thunder Bay.
Yeah,
Thunder Bay's the bigger, and then Winnipeg's.
That's
like
funny how you say it that
right?
way.
Like,
is people from Dryden call like Thunder Bay like Big Dryden, because a lot of people from Dryden just move here, right? Because it's close and like it's just like a big the schools here and stuff, and it's bigger. So
now last piece,
Yeah.
sponsors.
Yeah.
This ain't fighting ain't cheap.
No.
There's a lot that goes into
Yeah.
it. You live and breathe your passion, and I think that's we got across a little bit in that is. Fighting is a passion based thing, and
Yeah.
you don't live a high life.
Yeah.
You live to your craft.
Yeah.
So shout out to anyone out there listening. I know I
Yeah.
got sponsors up on the
Yeah.
wall here. Anybody, any of them, a floats one. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're gonna be. I'm gonna be floating a lot this camp, which will be good. I talked to the owners, Tracy and Gavin. They're awesome. So shout out to them. Obviously, any other sponsors? I have Kyle Zatry from Marble Eye Barber. He's in Sulicout. I grew up with him. He's been a sponsor my last fight, and we're gonna work something out this fight as well.
Nice.
But yeah, constantly looking for anyone that wants to be on board and like want to support the dream or just help out or even just like let's talk. Like just shoot me a message and like see what we could do.
Yeah, it's pretty surprising. I've noticed with the podcast how supportive businesses
Yeah.
are. Just even in trading, like your fights
Yeah.
come up, promote them.
Yeah, exactly,
They give
right?
back to you, and it's not much. I don't know the legalities of it or the technicalities, but I think it's pretty easy for businesses to write off donations.
Exactly,
and whatnot.
right?
So
yeah,
help a brother out.
Yeah.
Like I said, and I'm finishing it off with this here. If you're not on the Devon Lozej train, get on it.
Yeah.
Because he's the next big thing.
Can I shout out my social medias?
Yeah, for
so
sure.
I'm on Facebook at just Devon Alexander Lozej. It's
Yes.
pretty easy to find, and then on Instagram at DALOZEJ. That's my last name, so you can find me on those. Follow along. I post a lot of content, try to get people hyped for fights, and just like see the day by day and stuff. So yeah, give me a follow, and also just shoot me a message too. I'd love to. I love talking. I talk to all different kinds of people about fights. People I don't even know sometimes reach out and message and say I love what you're doing, and I love to respond and talk to people.
I can imagine when people hear this, there'd be some people interested in fighting because I know a lot of people
Yeah.
are armchair fighters.
Yeah.
And when they watch you see
Yeah.
it, and some people want to, and some people just don't know how to take the first
Yeah.
step in the door. So if you're interested, just even how to start, shoot Devon a message.
Yeah.
Check out Deep Superior. I'm going to be pumping Devon's next fight all over there. I'm going to have the link up to the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Watch it. It's cheap. I
Yeah.
think it's only like $15.
Yeah, I think this one I'm gonna be getting my own streaming on Facebook. I'm gonna do so. Add me on there. I'm gonna stream it.
You're
live.
gonna take care of
Yeah,
that.
I'm gonna take care of it and just kind of take things into my own hands so that there's no issues and it's a lot easier.
Okay.
You don't have to go through any third parties. Just get me on Facebook. I'll shoot you guys the time the night of the fight, and then just tune in. And I'll go live.
Do you have? Is it just your personal page, or do you have a business page set up?
I do have I have a Facebook page, Devon Alexander Lozej MMA. So it's my exact name with the MMA, but I post on both, share them like back and forth. So you could just add me as a friend or follow the page if you don't want to be friends.
Nice. Watch the fight, guys.
Yeah.
You won't miss out. It's gonna be a highlight.
Thanks
reel
for having me
knockout.
on, Mark.
My pleasure, man. Awesome.
Yeah.